Picture this: you board a long flight, you close your eyes somewhere over the ocean, and hours later, you land feeling worse than when you left, stiff neck, dry eyes, a foggy mind that takes half the day to clear. And you watch other passengers walk off the plane looking calm and rested. While you feel like you fought a battle in economy class, the truth is, flight attendants have watched this exact scene play out thousands of times. They know who sleeps well and who suffers, and they know exactly why. Today you are about to learn the real tricks they use themselves. The small adjustments that separate a wasted flight from a genuine reset. And by the end of this video, you will never board a plane the same way again. Because once you know what the crew already knows, sleep stops being something you hope for and starts being something you can actually plan. Before we go further, if you are someone who wants real advice instead of generic travel tips, hit subscribe to Fly Smart After 70, because every week we bring you insider knowledge that most travelers never hear. And if you are watching this before an upcoming trip, type the word ready in the comments so we know you are getting ready to sleep smarter on your next flight. Mistake 1. Reclining your seat too far and hurting your neck. Most passengers believe the secret to sleeping on a plane is simple. Push the recline button all the way back, close your eyes, and hope for the best. But flight attendants will tell you this is one of the fastest ways to guarantee a painful flight. Because a full recline does not actually support your body. It just tilts you backward, while your head has nothing to hold it in place. And the moment you drift off, your neck rolls to one side, your muscles tense up to compensate, and you wake up every 20 minutes without even realizing why. Over the course of a long flight, that adds up to hours of broken, shallow sleep instead of real rest. Flight attendants see this happen constantly, especially with first-time long-haul travelers who assume more recline always means more comfort. But comfort and support are two different things. A chair that leans back without holding your head steady is not helping you sleep. It is just changing the angle of your exhaustion. So what do experienced flyers do instead? They recline just enough to relieve pressure on the lower back, usually a moderate angle rather than the maximum one. And they pair that moderate recline with proper head support, which we will cover in the next section. They also avoid reclining fully during meal service or turbulence, not just out of courtesy to the passenger behind them, but because sudden movements, while your neck is unsupported, can cause real strain. Another detail flight attendants notice is posture before sleep. If you slouch down in your seat and then recline, your spine ends up in an awkward curve that makes neck pain almost guaranteed. Instead, sit upright first. Adjust the recline slowly and let your body settle into a natural position before you try to fall asleep. Small adjustments like tilting your hips slightly forward or using a rolled-up jacket behind your lower back can make a bigger difference than people expect. The bottom line flight attendants want you to understand is this: the recline button is a tool, not a solution, and using it without proper support is exactly why so many passengers land with a neck that feels like it aged 10 years overnight. There is also a psychological side to this that few travelers consider. When people feel cramped or uncomfortable, their instinct is to push the seat back as far as it goes, believing more space automatically means more comfort. But flight attendants who have flown thousands of hours know that stability matters far more than distance. A seat that is reclined moderately, combined with something solid behind the neck and shoulders, will almost always produce better sleep than a seat pushed to its absolute limit with nothing holding the head steady. Another overlooked factor is how the body settles during the first hour of a flight. Many passengers try to force sleep immediately after takeoff, while their body is still tense from boarding. Security and the general stress of travel, instead, easing into a relaxed posture gradually, adjusting the recline in small increments rather than all at once, gives your muscles time to actually unwind, which makes the eventual sleep far deeper and less likely to be interrupted by sudden neck strain halfway through the flight. Mistake 2. Failing to build a flight attendant approved sleep setup with a neck pillow and hoodie. Here is something most travelers never think about. Flight attendants do not just rely on luck to sleep during their own breaks, they build an actual setup, a system that supports the body properly, and one of the biggest parts of that system is the neck pillow. But not just any neck pillow. Most people grab the cheapest inflatable one at the airport gift shop, wear it loosely around their neck, and wonder why it does nothing. The truth is, a neck pillow only works if it is snug enough to actually stop your head from falling forward or sideways. Flight attendants recommend a firmer memory foam pillow, or an inflatable one pumped up until it feels almost too tight, because a loose pillow gives your head just enough room to slump anyway. And that small gap is where all the discomfort comes from. Next comes the hoodie. And this might be the most underrated tool in the entire sleep setup. A hoodie does two things at once. It blocks light from the sides of your face without needing a separate eye mask. And it creates a subtle barrier against the constant hum and chatter of the cabin. Flight attendants often pull their hood up, tuck the neck pillow inside it, and lean against the window or a folded blanket. This combination creates a soft, enclosed space around the head and neck that mimics the feeling of a real pillow at home. Another trick many flight attendants use is positioning. Instead of leaning straight back, they angle their body slightly toward the window or aisle wall, using it as an additional support surface. This reduces the strain on neck muscles, because the head has something solid to rest against. Instead of floating unsupported in open air, temperature also plays a role in this setup. A hoodie helps regulate body heat, because cabins can swing from too warm during boarding to freezing once cruising altitude is reached, and sudden temperature changes are one of the biggest reasons people wake up repeatedly during a flight. So the real lesson here is that comfort on a plane is not about buying one perfect product. It is about combining a few simple tools, a proper neck pillow, a hoodie, and smart positioning, into one system that actually works together. Once you build that setup and use it consistently, your body starts to recognize it as a signal that it is time to rest, which makes falling asleep faster and staying asleep longer far more realistic. Flight attendants also mention timing as part of this setup. Putting the hoodie up and the neck pillow in place right after the seatbelt sign turns off for cruising gives your body a clear, repeated cue. Night after night at home, you probably have a small routine before bed, brushing your teeth, dimming the lights, and your body learns to associate those actions with sleep. The same principle applies at 30,000 feet. If you build the same simple sequence every time you fly, pillow on, hood up, lean into position, your body starts to relax faster because it recognizes the pattern instead of treating every flight as a completely new, unfamiliar situation. Another small addition many experienced travelers use is a lightweight travel blanket or scarf layered under the hoodie. not for warmth alone, but because the slight pressure across the shoulders can feel grounding, almost like a gentle hug, which some people find genuinely calming during turbulence or when the cabin feels unusually cold. The goal is never to look perfectly put together. It is to give your nervous system every possible signal that it is safe to power down. And a consistent, comfortable setup does exactly that. Mistake 3. Sleeping without blocking light and noise. This next mistake is one flight attendants notice almost every single flight. Passengers who try to sleep while the cabin is still bright, while announcements are playing, and while nearby conversations continue without any barrier at all. Your brain does not switch off just because your eyes are closed. It stays alert to light and sound, scanning for anything unusual. And on a plane, there is always something happening. A food cart rolling by, a baby crying 2 rows back, a sudden shift in cabin lighting when the crew changes shifts, without proper blocking. Your brain treats every one of these as a reason to stay partially awake, which is why so many people describe plane sleep as light and unsatisfying even after hours with their eyes shut. Flight attendants almost always carry a proper eye mask, not the flimsy paper ones sometimes handed out in economy, but a contoured mask that creates real darkness without pressing on the eyes. True darkness matters, because even small amounts of light passing through eyelids can interrupt the deeper stages of sleep. On the noise side, earplugs paired with noise-canceling headphones create a much stronger barrier than either one alone. The earplugs handle the low, constant hum of the engines, while the headphones cut through sudden, sharp sounds like announcements or nearby conversations. Some flight attendants also play soft, continuous background sound, like white noise or gentle music, because a steady sound is often easier for the brain to tune out than silence that gets broken by random cabin noise. Timing matters here too. Putting on your mask and earplugs before you actually feel tired is a mistake many people make. Instead, experienced travelers set up their light and sound blocking gradually as the cabin lights dim, so their body gets a clear signal that it is time to wind down rather than trying to force sleep in a bright, noisy environment. The deeper point flight attendants want passengers to understand is that sleep on a plane is not something that just happens. If you are tired enough, it has to be created deliberately by removing the exact things that keep your brain on alert, light, and unpredictable sound. Once those 2 factors are controlled, falling into a real, restorative sleep becomes far more achievable, even in a cramped economy seat. There is another layer to this that most passengers never consider, and that is the difference between falling asleep and staying asleep. Blocking light and noise before you doze off might get you into a light sleep quickly, but if that same light or noise returns later in the flight, during a meal service, a sudden announcement, or a bright galley light left on nearby, it can pull you right back out of deeper sleep stages. Which is why flight attendants recommend keeping your mask and earplugs on for the full duration of your intended rest, rather than removing them the moment you feel drowsy. Another practical detail involves seat selection when it is available. Window seats tend to offer more control over light exposure because you can lean away from the aisle and control your own window shade, while aisle seats expose you to constant movement and light from the cabin. If you know in advance that sleep is a priority for your flight, choosing a window seat, or at the very least avoiding a seat near the galley or lavatory, removes a significant amount of the light and noise interruption before it ever becomes a problem in the first place. Mistake 4. Skipping compression socks and elevated feet. Most people think about sleep comfort in terms of the head and neck, but flight attendants will tell you that what happens below your knees plays a much bigger role than most travelers realize. On a long flight, blood naturally starts to pool in your lower legs, especially when you are sitting still for hours in a pressurized cabin. This leads to swelling, a heavy, tired feeling in your feet, and for some people, real discomfort that makes falling asleep almost impossible. Compression socks work by gently squeezing the lower leg, which helps blood circulate back upward instead of settling in the ankles and feet. Flight attendants wear them constantly during long shifts. Not just for comfort, but because standing or sitting for extended periods without them leads to noticeably worse fatigue by the end of a flight. The key detail most travelers miss is fit. Compression socks that are too loose barely help at all, while ones that are far too tight can restrict circulation instead of improving it. A moderate, snug fit is what actually makes a difference, alongside compression socks. Elevating your feet even slightly changes how your body settles into rest. If you have an empty seat nearby, resting your feet on your carry-on bag or a small travel footrest raises them just enough to reduce pooling and ease pressure on your lower back at the same time. Even without extra space, simply flexing your ankles every so often, rotating them in slow circles, and pointing your toes up and down keeps blood moving without needing to get up constantly. Flight attendants often do this quietly during quiet moments of a flight, and it is one of the simplest habits that makes a real difference by the time you land. Another detail worth mentioning is footwear. Tight shoes restrict circulation just as much as missing compression socks do, which is why many experienced flyers slip into loose, comfortable socks or slip-on shoes once they are seated, allowing their feet room to breathe and blood to flow freely. The overall goal here is simple. Your body cannot fully relax into sleep if your legs and feet are fighting swelling and poor circulation the entire time. By combining compression socks, occasional elevation, and simple movement, you remove one more barrier standing between you and a real uninterrupted rest during a long flight. Hydration plays a supporting role here as well, because dehydration thickens the blood slightly and makes circulation even more sluggish during long periods of sitting. Flight attendants drink water consistently throughout a flight, not just when they feel thirsty, and they encourage passengers to do the same rather than relying on coffee or alcohol, which can actually worsen swelling and disrupt the quality of sleep later on. Another habit worth mentioning is a short walk down the aisle every couple of hours, if the seatbelt sign allows it. Even a brief walk to the back of the cabin and back gets blood moving through the legs far more effectively than staying seated the entire flight, and it often makes the next stretch of sleep feel more comfortable, simply because the legs are not carrying the same buildup of pressure. None of these steps are complicated, but together they address a part of long flight discomfort that most passengers never connect to their poor sleep in the first place. Mistake 5. Hiding your seatbelt under the blanket while you sleep. This last one might be the most surprising, and it has nothing to do with comfort at all. It is about what flight attendants actually watch for while you sleep. Many passengers pull their blanket up completely, seatbelt and all, assuming it looks neater or feels warmer that way, but this creates a real problem. If the plane hits unexpected turbulence while you are asleep, flight attendants need to be able to see at a glance whether your seatbelt is fastened. If it is hidden underneath a blanket, they cannot tell from a quick visual check, which means they may need to wake you up just to confirm you are safely buckled in. Interrupting sleep you worked hard to get. Keeping your seatbelt visible over the top of your blanket solves this instantly. It lets the crew do their safety checks without disturbing you, and it means you are far less likely to be woken during a routine walk through the cabin. This small habit also matters during sudden turbulence, which can happen without warning even on clear weather days. If your seatbelt is fastened and visible, you are protected immediately. But if it is buried under blankets and pillows, there can be a dangerous delay in confirming everyone is secure. Flight attendants consistently mention this as one of the simplest things passengers overlook. It costs nothing, it takes no extra effort, and yet it makes a real difference, both for your own safety and for how smoothly your sleep is protected throughout the flight. A related habit worth adopting is keeping your blanket loosely draped rather than tightly wrapped around your entire body. This allows the seatbelt to remain visible while still keeping you warm, and it also makes it easier for you to adjust your position without fully waking up. Small, practical choices like this are exactly what separate passengers who land feeling rested from those who spend half the flight being disturbed for reasons that could have been avoided entirely. Flight attendants often mention that this single habit is one of the quickest ways to tell an experienced traveler from a first-time flyer. Seasoned passengers instinctively leave the belt visible without even thinking about it, because they understand it is part of a smooth, uninterrupted flight, while newer travelers tend to tuck everything under the blanket for a neater appearance, not realizing it creates extra work and potential disruption later. This small detail also ties back to something flight attendants care about deeply, which is being able to do their job quietly and efficiently without waking passengers unnecessarily. Every time they walk through the cabin during turbulence or before landing, they are scanning row by row for visible seatbelts, and a passenger who makes that check effortless is a passenger far more likely to sleep through the entire process undisturbed. It costs nothing to fold the blanket just below the belt instead of over it, but that one small choice can be the difference between a full, uninterrupted rest and being gently tapped awake in the middle of your best sleep of the flight. So there you have it. 5 real habits flight attendants actually use: avoiding a full recline without support, building a proper sleep setup with a neck pillow and hoodie, blocking out light and noise before you even feel tired, wearing compression socks and elevating your feet, and keeping your seatbelt visible over your blanket so your rest is never unnecessarily interrupted. None of these tricks require expensive gadgets or complicated routines. They simply require a little preparation before you board. And once you start combining them together, you will notice the difference almost immediately, landing feeling clear-headed instead of drained, ready for your day instead of needing one just to recover. If this video helped you see your next flight differently, make sure you are subscribed to Fly Smart After 70, because we share practical, real-world travel advice like this every single week. And if you have your own sleep trick that has worked for you on a long flight, drop it in the comments, because the more we share with each other, the smoother every future flight becomes for everyone watching. And Remember, none of these habits require you to spend a fortune or completely change how you pack. A firm neck pillow, a simple hoodie, a good eye mask, a pair of compression socks, and a little awareness of how you use your seatbelt, that is really all it takes to turn a long, exhausting flight into something closer to real rest. The passengers who step off the plane looking calm and refreshed are not lucky, and they are not somehow built differently than everyone else. They simply understand a few small details that most people never get taught. And now that you know them too, your next long flight does not have to feel like something you survive. It can actually feel like something you recover from. So take these 5 habits, try them on your very next trip, and notice the difference for yourself. Because once you feel what a real, protected sleep at 30,000 feet actually feels like, you will never want to fly without it again.